week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 12 kickers I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys. Brandon Aubrey picking up where he left off last season, hitting a bunch of field goals in the Week 1 victory at the Browns. And this week, indoor game, was his home. New Orleans Saints, their bend but don't break defense for the most part. So I think Aubrey once again is going to get many opportunities in this one. And he's got a big boot where he could kick it pretty much from anywhere. We saw a field goal that was called back as a penalty. He hit a 66-yarder in this game. So Brandon Aubrey, unlimited range, on a good offense. I think right now he's the number 1 kicker in fantasy football. Number 2, Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens. Some weeks he's not going to put up numbers. Last week he missed a 50-plus yarder in the opener at the Kansas City Chiefs. But this week, this Baltimore Raven team should be living in the red zone with a good matchup versus the Vegas Raiders, where we know they really can't stop anyone. Their defense has had trouble the last few seasons making stops. And we know Baltimore at home's been dominant, especially in the regular season. So I think Tucker's going to get multiple opportunities and put up a good game. Number 3, Ka'im Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. So Fairbairn last season had a great year. Week 1, picked up where he left off with 17 fantasy points. And this Texan offense, one of the best, if not the best offense in all pro football, in my opinion. So this week, a decent matchup versus the Bears. I know the Bears defense went out there and put in a great performance, causing turnovers and getting to Will Levis. But this offense is head and shoulders above Tennessee is this Houston Texan offense. I think Fairbairn's going to get opportunities. I think the Bears, they'll make a few stops, but I believe 2-3 field goals he's good for and a few extra points. Number 4, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Harrison Butker, the last season and change, has been one of the more accurate kickers in all pro football. And last week, once again, he made some big field goals in that ball game versus the Baltimore Ravens. This week, I think it could be a tight, competitive game with Cincinnati and the Chiefs. And you know, the Cincinnati team, they don't want to fall 0-2 this year. So I think this defense is going to go out there and give extra effort, where they've had some success the last couple of years versus Kansas City Chiefs team, where I think Butker's going to have to settle for some field goals in this one. Number 5, Jake Moody of the San Francisco 49ers. So Jake Moody had one of the best games you'll ever see from a kicker, hitting 5 field goals, 2 50-plus yarders, few 40-yarders in that one, and a 39-yard range. And this week, a good matchup in Minnesota, indoor game, always a plus, obviously, for any kicker. And Jake Moody last season was drafted in day 2 of the NFL draft for a reason from this 49er team. Last year, I thought it was a pretty decent rookie year. He had a couple hiccups here and there, but right now he looks like he's in mid-season form. And when you're on a high-powered offense, the opportunities are going to be there. And plus, like I said, he's in a dome this week at Minnesota. It's even better for Moody this week. Number 6, Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles. Jake Elliott's been a solid kicker the last few seasons for this Philadelphia Eagle team, signing a contract extension last year. This week, a good matchup, Monday Night Football versus the Atlanta Falcons. And I think this Eagle team, they'll get opportunities. We saw Elliott have 10 fantasy points in Week 1 versus the Packers in Brazil. At Philadelphia, when you got an offense with Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, you're going to get in the red zone 3-4 times a minimum per game. And this week versus the middle of the pack Atlanta Falcon defense, I think Philadelphia will have their way, and Elliott will get opportunity. Number 7, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Evan McPherson last week didn't get many opportunities. We know he's got a big boot, and his distance is pretty much unlimited for Money Mac. And this week in a game where they know they got to put up points, and they might have to try a couple long field goals, is the Cincinnati Bengal team at the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Evan McPherson could go out there and have a pretty good performance. Like I said, from long distance, he's one of the best kickers in the league. I know last season he missed some easier field goals that he should have hit. But Cincinnati, this is a big game. I know it's only week 2, but to go down 0-2 once again this year, like they started off last season, it's a tough hole to come out of. So I think Evan McPherson will get opportunities in this one. Number 8, Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. Tyler Bass last season, it was a down year for him. But week 1, he had a good kicking game with 17-mile-per-hour winds versus the Arizona Cardinals. So this week, Thursday Night Football at the Miami Dolphins. Always a good place to kick. Obviously, the weather is usually always great, besides when it rains. But I think Tyler Bass is a solid kicker. And this Bill team, there's going to be times they're going to stall out as well on offense. Obviously, with no true number 1 wide receiver. And you have number 17, Josh Allen, on the center. Going to be down in the red zone a whole lot for the majority of the games. And Bass is another kicker with 50-plus range where he can hit it pretty easily. Number 9, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Boswell last week, 6 field goals and 20-plus fantasy points for Boswell. And once again, it looks like Justin Fields is going to start. They're prepping is this Pittsburgh Steelers team that he's going to get the start at Denver. And we know Denver's always a good place to kick the football with the altitude, and that ball carries. So Boswell, he's been a veteran kicker over the last few seasons. Some games he'll kick well, and some games he won't do much. But last week we saw a few 50-yarders from him. I know it was indoors at Atlanta, but this week at Denver, like I said, that ball carries. You get an extra 5-10 yards in some of the kicks. I think he could go out there and score a decent amount once again because, like I said, this offense, they're going to have trouble all season, I believe, getting consistent touchdowns, and they're going to have to settle for field goals. Number 10, Cameron Dicker, the Los Angeles Chargers. Cameron Dicker's been a solid kicker in the last couple seasons for this Los Angeles Charger team. Last week he had a good ball game, and this week a great matchup at the Panthers that just gave up 47 points to the New Orleans Saints, which is a similar or maybe a little bit of a better offense than this Los Angeles Charger team. But at quarterback, obviously Justin Herbert is better than Derek Carr at this point in their career. So I think Dick is going to get opportunities. He's got a good boot. Ball game in Carolina, the weather should be pretty good. And Cameron Dicker, he's been an accurate kicker, one of the most accurate ones over the last couple seasons. So this week is a top 10 option. I think he'll do well. Number 11, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. So this Seattle offense, the last couple of years, they've stalled out a lot in the red zone. And Jason Myers is another kicker who's got good range. He's got a good boot and good accuracy. And this week, at a bend but don't break type of defensive philosophy we've seen for many seasons over there in New England. Obviously, the Belichick era, that defense made a lot of good stops in the red zone. And then in week 1, with Mayo as the head coach, they made some stops as well with this New England Patriot defense. I think this week we're going to see opportunities for Myers. Gillette Stadium is a tough place to play. And Myers has a good boot, and the Seattle offense has a lot of good weapons. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Smith-Njigba, Kenneth Walker, if he's healthy in this game. And I think there'll be opportunities for Myers in this one. And the 12th and final kicker I'm ranking this week's Younghoe Koo of the Atlanta Falcons. So maybe he's a little low on my list, but Younghoe Koo throughout his career has been a way better kicker at home in Atlanta than he's been on the road. And this week it's an outdoor ball game. A majority of his games are obviously indoors with the home game. This week it could be a potential shootout with the Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles, but sometimes that night weather is tricky over there in Philadelphia with the wind. But Younghoe Koo's a good kicker. He's been for many seasons, but just like I said, his home road splits are a little different where he's a much better kicker at home. But I still believe this week he could be a top 12 kicker. So that's the top 12 kickers I'm ranking for week 2 of the fantasy football season.